This presentation, including its haunting visuals and emotional narrative, was created using advanced artificial intelligence based on the real historical events of the Whydah Gally to honor the many souls lost within the deep. We invite our audience to watch this exploration with a positive and respectful spirit as we uncover the secrets of the seafloor, and we encourage you to support our channel by subscribing now. Please remember that while our technology brings the past to life, the human tragedy and the loss of innocent lives are very real, and we present this footage as a solemn memorial. In the freezing spring of 1717, a monstrous nor'easter descended upon the coast of Cape Cod, tearing through the sails of the most heavily armed and feared pirate flagship in the entire Atlantic. Captain Samuel Bellamy, known as Black Sam, commanded the Whydah Gally, a massive vessel weighed down by 4.5 tons of gold, silver, and the stolen treasures of over 50 different ships. This was the richest pirate prize in history, a floating fortress of stolen wealth, yet it was also a ship born in darkness, having begun its life as a vessel for the horrific slave trade. As the 70-mile-per-hour winds shred the rigging, the crew of 146 men realized that their stolen fortune was becoming a lead weight, dragging them toward the jagged, hidden sandbars. The sea was indifferent to the pirate prince and his treasure, hammering the wooden hull until the massive galley was flipped upside down and torn apart by the freezing and violent Atlantic surf. Bellamy and nearly his entire crew were swallowed by the pitch-black water in an instant, their screams muffled by the roar of the storm as the ship shattered into thousands of wooden splinters. For nearly 300 years, the remains of the Whydah Gally vanished beneath the shifting sands of Massachusetts, becoming a ghost story that haunted the local coastline and the dreams of every treasure hunter. Today, we deploy a high-tech ROV to navigate these treacherous and murky waters, its powerful lights fighting against the zero-visibility conditions as we seek the final resting place of the legendary pirate flagship. The camera glides through a cloud of churning sand and marine snow, revealing a landscape of total desolation where the treasures of an empire have been reclaimed by the cold and relentless North Atlantic. We see the massive iron anchors of the Whydah resting like rusted giants on the seabed, their heavy flukes half buried in the silt, marking the exact spot where the ship made its final stand. Our machine sensors identify a cluster of dark, rock-like shapes that appear to be nothing more than common stones, but these are actually concretions, the mineralized tombs of the pirate crew's stolen loot. Within these hard shells of sand and rust, history is literally frozen in time, holding silver coins, musket balls, and human remains in a crushing grip that has lasted for over 3 centuries now. The visual evidence of the disaster is overwhelming as the ROV passes over a row of iron cannons, their muzzles choked with sediment, forever silenced after that one final and terrifying night of destruction. The mystery we seek to resolve is the human truth behind the curse of the blood money, looking past the romanticized legends to find the real people who lived and died on this vessel. Among the fierce outlaws and kidnapped sailors was the youngest pirate in history, a boy named John King, whose story serves as the tragic emotional heart of this dark and watery graveyard exploration. Just months before the sinking, young John was a passenger on a merchant ship intercepted by Bellamy, but instead of cowering in fear, the 11-year-old demanded to join the legendary pirate crew. He famously threw a tantrum and threatened his own mother, begging to leave his ordinary life behind for the promise of adventure, gold, and the freedom of the high seas under Black Sam. Bellamy agreed to take the boy, perhaps seeing a reflection of his own rebellious spirit, but the dream of a pirate's life would soon turn into a cold and terrifying reality for the child. As we move the ROV toward the central debris mound, we are searching for any sign of the innocence that was lost when John King chose to walk the deck of a pirate ship. The mechanical arm of the submersible carefully clears away a layer of sediment to reveal a bronze object emerging from the gloom, its surface encrusted with barnacles but its shape still unmistakably a bell. This is the iconic ship's bell of the Whydah Gally, inscribed with the date 1716, a definitive and chilling identification that confirms we are standing in the presence of a legendary ghost. The discovery of the bell is a somber moment, a chime from the past that signals the transition from a treasure hunt to a deep-water investigation of a massive and tragic loss of life. Our lights reflect off a scattering of silver, pieces of 8, that have spilled out from a broken concretion, glowing like cold, pale eyes in the darkness of the churning and unforgiving seabed. This wealth is not the glamorous loot of Hollywood movies, it is blood money, much of it tied to the horrific trade of human lives that the Whydah was originally built to facilitate. The ROV identifies a piece of Akan gold jewelry from West Africa, a heartbreaking and grim reminder that the gold Bellamy stole was often ripped from the very people his ship once enslaved. The contrast between the beautiful, intricate gold and the violent history of the vessel creates a heavy atmosphere of sorrow as our machine continues to map the extent of the wreckage field. We move into a deeper section of the site where the current is stronger, revealing a collection of pewter plates and ceramic shards that once belonged to the crew's final, desperate evening meal. Imagine the fear of an 11-year-old boy trapped below deck as the timber began to scream and the freezing Atlantic water rushed into the hold, extinguishing every lantern and every hope. John King would have been surrounded by the very gold he craved, yet in his final moments, that treasure offered no warmth and no protection from the crushing weight of the freezing sea. The ROV sensors detect a small, dense object partially buried in the sand near a cluster of musket balls, and we maneuver the camera closer to inspect what appears to be a personal item. It is a small, silver crucifix, its delicate details still visible through the silt, likely held by a doomed sailor who spent his last seconds praying for a mercy the ocean would not grant. This devotional item suggests a desperate grasp for faith amidst the violence of a pirate's life, a silent witness to the spiritual terror that gripped the men as the ship broke apart. Our expedition is focused on documenting these small, intimate clues, as every artifact recovered from the Whydah Gally tells a story of a life that was erased in a single night of fury. The ROV passes over a massive concretion that looks like a boulder, but our onboard X-ray technology reveals a horrifying mosaic of tragedy hidden deep within the solid and rusted mineral shell. We see the outlines of pistols fused to human skulls and silver coins melted into the fabric of belt buckles, a chaotic and violent tomb created by the chemistry of the deep ocean. These stones of history are the only remains of the men who followed Bellamy, their bodies and their stolen wealth now inseparable in the eyes of the sea and the passage of time. The technical challenge of working in this environment is immense, as the shifting sands can bury an entire section of the wreck in hours, making every discovery a race against the elements. Our submersible's thrusters kick up a cloud of fine sediment, momentarily obscuring the view and creating an eerie, ghostly fog that seems to pulse with the energy of the 300 lost souls. As the water clears, the ROV identifies a small, dark shape protruding from a cluster of rusted iron fittings, and we zoom in to reveal a texture that looks like ancient leather. It is a tiny, 18th century shoe, its surface wrinkled by the salt but remarkably preserved by the anaerobic environment of the deep sand, a chilling and silent monument to a lost child. Forensic analysis of this shoe would later reveal a small human fibula bone still inside, providing the ultimate and heartbreaking proof that John King died exactly where he had chosen to live. The sight of the child's shoe sitting among the cannons and the gold is a devastating blow to the myth of the fun pirate, replacing it with a raw and terrifying reality. We pause the ROV to honor the memory of the boy who ran away from his mother only to find a freezing grave at the bottom of the Atlantic, miles from home. The tragedy of John King is the tragedy of the Whydah Gally itself, a story of misguided dreams and the brutal consequences of seeking fortune through violence and the theft of others. Our machine-led exploration continues to probe the edges of the treasure mound, looking for the mother lode of Bellamy's fortune that legends claim is still hidden deep within the shifting dunes. But for the archaeologists and the historians on our team, the true value of the wreck lies in these small, personal reminders of the human lives that were shattered in 1717. We see a rusted fragment of a sword hilt lying next to a tattered piece of a wool jacket, the remnants of a pirate's bravado now reduced to mere debris in the dark. The ROV's high-definition camera captures the texture of a silver coin that has been worn smooth by 3 centuries of abrasive sand, its royal inscription slowly fading into the gray Atlantic silt. Every coin we find is a piece of blood money, and we handle the discovery with a somber tone, acknowledging that many died so that these pieces of metal could be gathered. The ROV identifies a large iron cauldron that once sat in the ship's galley, now a sanctuary for small crabs that scuttle away from the intrusion of our bright and artificial lights. Nature has a way of colonizing the ruins of human history, turning a site of unimaginable terror into a quiet, underwater habitat where the passage of time is marked only by currents. We move toward the stern section of the debris field, where the largest concentration of heavy iron cannons resides, their weight having anchored them to the seafloor while the wood rotted away. The sonar mapping shows that the wreckage extends much further than originally thought, suggesting that the Whydah was literally pulverized by the surf as it was driven over the Cape Cod bars. Our ROV captures a view of a long, rusted chain trailing off into the darkness, perhaps once used to secure the stolen cargo or the human captives held in the ship's hold. The atmosphere down here is heavy with the weight of the past, a feeling of dread that no amount of gold can mask as we witness the final resting place of Bellamy. We find a cluster of lead seals from merchant bales, evidence of the diverse and valuable cargo that the pirates had plundered from ships across the Caribbean and the American colonies alike. Each of these seals represents a different victim of the Whydah's reign of terror, a merchant or a sailor whose livelihood was stolen by the men who now lie in the sand. The ROV's mechanical arm picks up a small, encrusted object that turns out to be a pewter spoon, its handle bent as if by a strong hand in a final, desperate moment. It is these domestic items that hurt the most, reminding us that the pirates were not just legends, but men who ate, slept, and feared the very same things that we do. We observe the way the light glints off a patch of gold dust that has settled in a crevice of the rock, a shimmering reminder of the immense wealth that remains scattered. This golden sand is all that remains of the dreams of Captain Bellamy, who promised his men a life of luxury but delivered them only to a cold and crushing underwater grave. Our expedition is a search for dignity among the ruins, as we seek to document the site without disturbing the remains of the men who have made this seafloor their eternal home. The ROV glides past a section of rotted teak wood, one of the few pieces of the ship's structure to survive the centuries, its grain still visible despite the damage from shipworms. We find a rusted iron hinge that once belonged to a treasure chest, its lid long gone and its contents spilled into the vast, hungry mouth of the shifting Atlantic sand dunes. The mystery of where the rest of the gold lies continues to baffle explorers, as the Whydah seems to guard its secrets with the same ferocity that Bellamy once guarded his ship. As the ROV thrusters hum, we see a glint of red in the silt, which turns out to be a fragment of a ceramic jug, perhaps once holding the pirate's final toast. The camera lingers on the silhouette of Akan, its form draped in kelp like a funeral shroud, standing as a silent guardian over the bones of the boy and the pirates. We are moving toward the deepest part of the known wreck site, where the pressure is slightly higher and the visibility even lower, requiring our machines to rely on advanced sonar. The data reveals a large anomaly buried 3 meters beneath the current seabed, prompting the team to consider the possibility of an intact section of the lower hold still existing. We offer a silent prayer for the souls of the kidnapped and the enslaved who were trapped on this ship, acknowledging that their tragedy is a permanent part of this underwater memorial. Every artifact we have seen today is a testament to a night of absolute horror, a reminder that the ocean does not distinguish between the innocent child and the most wanted pirate. The ROV begins its slow turn back toward the recovery vessel, its lights fading into the murky green gloom, leaving the Whydah Gally once more to the silence of the deep. Our journey into the heart of the pirate legend has only just begun, and the evidence we have found today confirms that the truth is far more tragic than any myth. Our ROV continues to hover over the fractured remains of the galley's lower hull, where the freezing Atlantic currents have spent centuries burying the dark secrets of Black Sam Bellamy's final, desperate stand. The high-intensity lights of the submersible scan the edges of a massive, mineralized concretion, revealing the jagged outlines of a pirate's cutlass forever fused to a pile of silver Spanish pieces of 8. For young John King, These weapons were once symbols of a forbidden and exciting new world, but now they are merely rusted relics of a violent life that ended far too soon in the surf. The camera moves slowly across a field of shattered timber, where the rotted remains of the ship's ribs protrude from the sand like the bleached bones of a leviathan defeated by the Cape Cod storm. We observe a cluster of lead musket balls trapped in a layer of sediment, representing the firepower Bellamy used to dominate the Caribbean before the ocean stripped him of his pride and his life. Every object our machine identifies is a piece of a tragic puzzle, showing how the wealth of 50 captured vessels was compressed into a single, chaotic graveyard under the crushing weight of the sea. As the ROV clears a patch of fine silt, we find a small, lead-weighted fishing line, perhaps used by the crew during calmer days to pass the time between their acts of maritime theft. John King would have watched the older pirates with wide-eyed wonder, unaware that the heavy gold they hauled into the holds would eventually become the very anchor that pulled them to their cold graves. The submersible sonar mapping identifies a dense anomaly beneath a fallen iron cannon, leading us to discover a cache of Akan gold jewelry that speaks to the ship's dark and original purpose. These intricate West African ornaments are heartbreaking evidence of the lives stolen during the Whyda's time as a slave ship, a legacy of suffering that the pirate treasure can never truly hope to mask. The contrast between the beauty of the gold and the horror of the transatlantic trade creates a heavy, somber atmosphere that permeates every inch of this murky and silt-choked underwater debris field today. Our mechanical arm reaches out to stabilize the camera as we investigate a rotted leather satchel, its strap still buckled over a hollow space where letters and maps once guided the pirate prince. Inside the silt-filled interior of the hull, we find a collection of pewter spoons and broken ceramic jars, the mundane remnants of a crew that lived on the edge of survival and violent lawlessness. Imagine the terror of an 11-year-old child as the massive galley was lifted by a 40-foot wave and slammed upside down, the freezing water extinguishing the lanterns and leaving him in absolute darkness. John King's screams would have been lost in the roar of the freezing surf, his small hands clutching at whatever he could find as the ship began to break into thousands of wooden splinters. The ROV captures a view of a rusted iron hinge from a treasure chest, its lid long gone, leaving the silver coins to be scattered across the seabed by 3 centuries of relentless Atlantic currents. We see a school of small, translucent fish darting through the mouth of a cannon, a sign of life in a place that has been a silent monument to death since the spring of 1717. The machine's lights reflect off a fragment of a silver-mounted pistol, its wood rotted away but its metalwork still showing the intricate engravings favored by the most successful and wealthy of the pirate elite. Every discovery brings us closer to the reality of the night the Whydah died, stripping away the glamorous Hollywood myths to reveal the raw and terrifying experience of the drowning and desperate men. We identify a section of the deck that has been preserved by a heavy layer of clay, showing the marks of the heavy cannons that were dragged across the wood during the final, chaotic battle. Near a cluster of iron cannonballs, the ROV identifies a small, bone-carved die, a simple gaming piece that suggests the pirates spent their final hours gambling for a future they would never live to see. For John King, the game was over before it truly began, his life ending in a violent collision with a sandbar while the mother he abandoned likely prayed for his safe and speedy return home. The ROV's high-definition camera focuses on a piece of rotted hemp rope, its fibers still showing the strength required to hold the massive sails against the 70-mile-per-hour winds of the nor'easter storm. We find a rusted iron shackle half buried in the sand, a chilling reminder of the captives who were once held in this ship's hold, their suffering a permanent part of the Whydah's dark, watery legacy. This site is a convergence of tragedies, where the blood money of piracy meets the horrific evidence of slavery, all buried under the indifferent and freezing sands of the Massachusetts coastal waters today. The submersible moves toward a large concretion that, when viewed through our specialized sensors, reveals a hidden cache of silver coins fused around a common iron nail from the ship's wooden hull. These fused objects are the physical embodiment of the disaster, showing how the ship and its stolen wealth were welded together by the chemistry of the ocean and the passage of long centuries. Our machine-led expedition is a solemn visitation of a grave, and we handle every artifact with the respect due to the 144 souls who remain lost in these shifting dunes. The ROV clears more sediment to reveal a pair of brass dividers, the tools of a navigator who failed to predict the power of the storm or the treachery of the hidden Cape Cod bars. Every line of the wreckage tells a story of miscalculation and arrogance, of a pirate prince who believed he could outrun the law and the sea, only to find a cold, crushing end. The camera captures the texture of a rusted iron anchor chain that stretches off into the murky gloom, a lifeline that snapped during the night of the sinking, sealing the ship's tragic fate. We find a collection of clay tobacco pipes, their long stems broken and scattered like white bones across the dark silt, evoking the image of a crew finding a final moment of calm. John King might have sat near these men, listening to their tales of plunder and freedom, never imagining that the sea would soon claim him as its youngest and most innocent of pirate victims. The ROV identifies a large, copper alloy cauldron that once sat in the galley, its surface encrusted with minerals but still holding the shape of the vessel that fed a crew of outlaws. Inside the cauldron, we find a layer of fine, gray sand that has perfectly preserved the remains of a final meal, a domestic detail that makes the upcoming tragedy feel even more personal. The atmosphere down here is thick with the weight of the past, as if the ocean itself is guarding the memory of the cries that echoed across the surf on that April night. Our sensors detect a faint metallic signature buried deep within a pile of rotted teak wood, prompting a careful investigation of what might be another significant piece of the pirates' hoard. As the ROV's thrusters clear the area, we reveal a set of silver-mounted shoe buckles, perhaps belonging to Bellamy himself, a sign of the finery he wore even in the face of death. These buckles are a contrast to the small, leather child's shoe found earlier, highlighting the gap between the men who chose this life and the boy who was caught in their wake. The ROV glides past a section of the stern where the wood has been worn smooth by the abrasive action of the sand, its shape still suggesting the power and the speed of the Whydah. We find a rusted iron key lying in a crevice of the rocks, its purpose long forgotten but its presence a reminder of the things the pirates tried to keep locked away from the world. The mystery of the mother lode remains, as our cameras scan the endless dunes of shifting sand that have swallowed tons of gold and silver since the ship first hit the bar. Every discovery of a single coin is a reminder of the thousands more that remain hidden, guarded by the violent surge and the zero visibility conditions that make exploration here so incredibly difficult. We observe the way the light from our ROV catches a patch of oxidized copper, creating a haunting green glow that seems to pulse with the energy of the long-submerged and forgotten wreck. A small crab scuttles over a rusted cannon barrel, a reminder that nature is the only true owner of this site now, slowly consuming the remains of man's violent and greedy history. The ROV identifies a cluster of lead seals from merchant bales, evidence of the diverse and valuable cargo the pirates had plundered from ships across the Caribbean and the American colonial coast. Each seal is a silent witness to a theft, a piece of a merchant's livelihood that ended up at the bottom of the Atlantic along with the men who dared to take it. We find a rusted fragment of a sword hilt lying next to a tattered piece of a wool jacket, the last remnants of a pirate's bravado now reduced to mere debris in the dark. The camera focuses on a silver piece of 8 that has been worn almost flat by the sand, its royal inscriptions barely visible through the fine, gray silt of the Cape Cod seabed. For John King, the promise of these coins was a lure that led him away from his mother's arms and into a world of darkness, pressure, and the freezing, crushing weight of water. The ROV sensors pick up a strange anomaly near the bow remains, leading us to a half-buried anchor that was never deployed, perhaps because the storm was too fast and violent. We see the way the iron has bubbled and corroded over 3 centuries, creating a surreal and alien landscape that hides the bones and the treasures of the legendary Whydah Gally's crew. The machine moves slowly through a cloud of marine snow, its lights reflecting off the suspended particles like stars in a dark, underwater galaxy of historical sorrow and maritime loss of life. We find a piece of a wooden pulley, its iron pin still intact, a mechanical relic that once helped the pirates control the massive sails that drove them toward their final, tragic destination. The ROV's mechanical arm gently clears a layer of sand from a pewter plate, revealing the maker's mark and confirming the ship's origins in the busy docks of 18th century London and the world. This plate once held food for a man who believed he was free from the laws of the land, yet down here, he was subject to the absolute and unforgiving laws of nature. The silence of the wreckage is a powerful reminder of the peace that has finally come to the site, centuries after the violent screams of the drowning men were silenced by the surf. We observe the way the sand has reclaimed the site, burying the heavy iron cannons and the delicate silver coins alike, leaving only the most resilient of objects for our cameras to find. The ROV identifies a cluster of rusted iron rings that once held the ship's rigging, now standing as silent, skeletal sentinels over the grave of the youngest pirate and his fierce companions. We find a tattered piece of leather that might have been part of a sailor's belt, its buckle missing but its shape still holding the memory of the man who once wore it. The tragedy of the Whydah is etched into every piece of rotted wood and every rusted bolt, a narrative of greed and loss that remains as powerful today as it was in 1717. John King's presence is felt in the smallness of the artifacts we sometimes find, like a tiny button or a fragment of a small clay pipe, reminders of his stolen and lost innocence. The ROV's thrusters kick up a cloud of silt, momentarily obscuring the view and creating an eerie, foggy atmosphere that seems to pulse with the shadows of the 144. As the water clears, we see a glint of red in the sand, which turns out to be a fragment of a ceramic jug that once held the pirate's final, desperate toast to freedom. The camera lingers on the silhouette of a cannon, its form draped in kelp like a funeral shroud, standing as a silent guardian over the bones of the boy and the pirates alike. We are moving toward the deepest part of the known wreck site, where the pressure is slightly higher and the visibility even lower, requiring our machines to rely on advanced and precise sonar. The data reveals a large anomaly buried 3 meters beneath the current seabed, prompting the team to consider the possibility of an intact section of the lower hold still existing in the sand. We offer a silent prayer for the souls of the kidnapped and the enslaved who were trapped on this ship, acknowledging that their tragedy is a permanent part of this underwater historical memorial. Every artifact we have seen today is a testament to a night of absolute horror, a reminder that the ocean does not distinguish between the innocent child and the most wanted pirate king. The ROV begins its slow turn back toward the recovery vessel, its lights fading into the murky green gloom, leaving the Whydah Gally once more to the silence and the deep Atlantic dunes. Our journey into the heart of the pirate legend has only just begun, and the evidence we have found today confirms that the truth is far more tragic than any myth ever told. We prepare for the final descent in the next phase of our mission, seeking the strongest emotional discoveries that will help us offer a final, respectful memorial to the lost souls of 1717. The memory of John King and the men of the Whydah Gally will continue to guide our exploration as we seek to uncover the ultimate fate of the richest pirate prize in history. Stay with us as we move toward the final chapter of this deep-sea mystery, where the gold, the bones, and the truth finally meet in the cold light of our modern-day machines. The shadows of the past are long, but our lights are bright, and we will not stop until the story of the Whydah is told with the dignity and the compassion it deserves. The ROV maneuvers deeper into the shifting sands of the Wellfleet coast, its thrusters carefully uncovering a heavy iron chest that has been sealed shut by centuries of mineralized rust and ocean pressure. We imagine the final, desperate moments of John King, a boy who sought a life of adventure but found himself trapped in a wooden cage as the freezing Atlantic water rose around him. As the mechanical arm gently brushes away the silt, the camera reveals a small, lead toy soldier, a cherished possession that likely belonged to the youngest pirate before the storm took everything. This tiny relic stands in stark contrast to the massive iron cannons and heaps of gold, reminding us that even amidst the violence of piracy, there was the fragile presence of childhood. The ROV moves toward a section of the hull where the wood is still partially intact, revealing a dark, claustrophobic space that once served as the primary hold for the ship's human cargo. We pause to acknowledge the horrific history of the Whydah as a slave vessel, a place of unimaginable suffering where hundreds were once chained in the dark before Bellamy claimed the ship. The treasure recovered from this site is stained by the blood of the innocent, a cold reality that our expedition handles with the deepest respect and a commitment to telling the truth. Our machine sensors identify a cluster of rusted iron manacles half buried in the sand, a chilling physical link to the ship's original mission and the lives that were traded for this gold. The visual of these shackles resting near the pirate's silver is a powerful indictment of the era, showing how greed and cruelty were woven into the very fabric of the 18th century world. John King may have walked past these very chains, a boy caught between the promise of pirate freedom and the dark reality of a world built on the exploitation of his fellow man. We move the ROV toward a deeper depression in the seafloor, where the high-definition lens catches the glint of a golden Akan bead, a delicate artifact from the heart of West Africa. This bead is a silent memorial to the nameless individuals who were stolen along with the gold, their stories forever entangled with the fate of the Whydah Gally and its pirate crew. The ROV's lights illuminate a tattered piece of sailcloth that has been preserved in the anaerobic silt, looking like a ghostly shroud draped over the rotted remains of a wooden treasure chest. We find a small, silver-handled hairbrush near a pile of ballast stones, a personal item that suggests the pirates tried to maintain a sense of dignity even in their lawless and violent lives. As we explore the perimeter of the wreck, we encounter a large, rusted anchor that was clearly deployed in a final, futile attempt to keep the ship from hitting the deadly sandbars. The massive iron flukes are bent and twisted, showing the incredible force of the nor'easter that pulverized the ship and sent its crew into the freezing, dark embrace of the Atlantic Ocean. The ROV identifies a collection of ceramic apothecary jars, their contents long gone but their presence a reminder that the ship carried a surgeon who likely struggled to save the injured men. In the chaos of the sinking, medical skill was useless against the power of the surge, and the surgeon likely perished alongside the very sailors he had spent months trying to heal. We find a rusted pocketknife lying near a pile of rotted hemp rope, its blade still partially extended as if it were being used to cut away the rigging in those final seconds. This frozen moment of desperation is etched into the seafloor, a physical record of the struggle that John King and the rest of the crew faced as their world literally fell apart. The camera glides over a field of thousands of lead musket balls, looking like gray hailstones scattered across the sand, the silent ammunition of a pirate war that nature ended so abruptly. The ROV discovers a small, silver locket partially hidden under a timber, its hinges rusted shut but its presence suggesting a secret love or a memory of a life left far behind. Inside such an object might have been a lock of hair or a tiny portrait, a connection to a family that would never know the true fate of their son or brother. We move into a section where the sand has been cleared by the current, revealing a group of iron cannons standing in a row, as if still guarding the pirates' hidden fortune. The sight is both majestic and terrifying, a reminder of the firepower that Sam Bellamy commanded before he was humbled by the sheer and overwhelming power of the great North Atlantic Sea. The ROV's mechanical arm gently clears away more silt from a large concretion, revealing a cluster of human teeth fused to a silver coin, a haunting and intimate relic of the lost. This discovery shifts our focus back to the human cost of the Whydah Gally, reminding us that every treasure we find is a marker for a life that was violently cut short. We offer a silent prayer for the 144 men who rest here, asking that their spirits find the peace and the mercy that was denied to them in life. May the God of the oceans receive them in his grace, providing a sanctuary for the outlaws, the kidnapped, and the innocent child who all met the same watery fate that night. The presence of a small, wooden cross carved into a bulkhead provides a glimmer of hope, suggesting that faith was a constant companion for those who lived on the edge of death. John King likely clutched his own charms or prayed to the saints as the water rose, his young heart filled with a terror that no gold or silver could ever hope to soothe. We find a rusted iron buckle from a child's belt, a small and heartbreaking artifact that confirms the presence of the youngest pirate in the very heart of the ship's most dangerous areas. The ROV identifies a pile of rotted leather shoes, their shapes distorted by the salt and pressure, looking like a crowd of ghosts waiting for their owners to return and walk again. Among the shoes, we see the smallest one again, a poignant reminder of John King's tiny footsteps on the deck of a ship that was meant for men of war and violence. The camera focuses on the bronze ship's bell once more, its surface now cleaned by our machine, reflecting the light like a golden sun in the dark and murky Cape Cod waters. The bell is the soul of the ship, the voice that once signaled the hours and the alarms, now forever silenced but still standing as a witness to the truth of the wreck. We move toward the stern where the current is strongest, uncovering a collection of pewter plates that were likely used by Bellamy and his officers during their final, celebratory pirate feast. The plates are scratched and worn, showing the marks of a life spent at sea, a domestic detail that makes the upcoming tragedy feel even more personal and immediate for our audience. The ROV captures a school of deep-sea crabs scuttling over a pile of silver coins, a sign that the ocean has fully integrated the pirates' wealth into its own complex and ancient ecosystem. Nature does not care for the value of the gold, seeing it only as a substrate for life, a humbling reminder of the ultimate indifference of the universe to human greed and ambition. We find a piece of a wooden nameplate, the letters partially visible through the marine growth, reminding us that this ship was once the pride of its builders before it was stolen. The ROV's mechanical lights reflect off a fragment of a glass bottle, its green surface shimmering like an emerald in the silt, perhaps once holding the wine that toasted a pirate's freedom. As we prepare to conclude our exploration, the machine captures a wide shot of the entire debris field, showing the scale of the destruction that occurred on that April night in history. The Whydah Gally is more than just a shipwreck, it is a time capsule of a world in transition, where the horrors of slavery and the lure of piracy met in a storm. We honor the memory of the kidnapped Africans who were once held in this ship's dark hold, acknowledging their suffering as a permanent and essential part of the Whydah's complex historical legacy. Their presence is felt in the Akan gold and the iron shackles, a reminder that the wealth of the pirate prince was built on the foundations of a truly horrific human trade. We also remember John King, the boy who chose adventure over safety, and whose small leather shoe remains the most devastating and powerful artifact ever recovered from these cold, shifting sands. His story is a warning about the high price of glory, a reminder that the ocean has a way of claiming those who wander too far from the warmth of their homes. The ROV begins its slow ascent from the seafloor, its lights fading into the murky green gloom as we leave the Whydah Gally to the eternal silence of the North Atlantic. We carry with us the images of the gold, the cannons, and the bones, committed to sharing the truth of this site with the respect and the compassion that it truly deserves. May the souls of the 144 rest in eternal peace, and may their stories serve as a bridge toward a better understanding of our shared and difficult past. The mystery of the mother lode may never be fully resolved, but the human truth of the Whydah has been found in the shoes, the buttons, and the silver of the lost. We thank you for joining our machine-led expedition into the heart of the pirate legend, and we hope that you have found a deeper connection to the real lives behind the myth. Please remember to support our work as we continue to document the tragedies of the deep, ensuring that the voices of the past are never silenced by the crushing weight of time. The light of the sun is a welcome sight as our ROV breaks the surface, a reminder of the world that John King and Sam Bellamy lost on that final, terrifying night. We look out over the waters of Wellfleet, knowing that beneath the waves, the Whydah Gally continues to guard its secrets and its dead in the cold and shifting Atlantic dunes. The gold may be beautiful, but it is the fragile human stories that are the true treasure of the deep, providing us with a window into the souls of those who came before. We pause for a final moment of reflection, acknowledging the bravery, the greed, the suffering, and the innocence that all collided in the sinking of the richest pirate prize in history. Let us treat this wreck not as a spectacle of loot, but as a solemn graveyard that demands our reverence and our commitment to the preservation of our collective maritime heritage. The memory of Black Sam Bellamy and his crew will live on through these artifacts, a haunting narrative of a life lived on the edge and a death met in the dark. As we sail away from the coast of Cape Cod, the legacy of the Whydah remains etched into the seabed, a silent monument to the power of the sea and history. We offer a blessing for the families who never knew the end of their sons, and we hope that the discovery of this site brings some small measure of historical justice. The silver, pieces of 8, will eventually fade, and the iron cannons will return to the earth, but the human tragedy of John King will remain forever in our hearts today. The ROV is secured on the deck of our vessel, its mission complete, but the haunting images of the child's shoe in the silt will be with us for a lifetime. We look toward the next horizon, seeking the stories that are still hidden in the darkness, ready to bring them into the light with the same dignity and compassion shown here. Thank you for watching this solemn journey into the deep ocean, and may you carry the lessons of the Whydah Gally with you as you reflect on the price of gold. Let the peace of the Atlantic be upon the lost, and let the truth of their lives shine through the murky waters as a beacon of remembrance for all of us. Our journey concludes here, but the story of the pirate ship Whydah and the boy who joined its crew will never truly end as long as we remember their names. The ocean remains a vast and silent guardian of our past, and we are merely the witnesses who translate its whispers into a narrative of loss, hope, and eternal rest. May every soul find their way home in the spirit, and may the history of the Whydah Gally be a reminder of the fragility of our own short and precious lives. We close our logs for this expedition, leaving the site to the currents and the shadows, with a deep respect for the treasures and the tragedies of the deep-sea world. The sun sets over the Massachusetts coast, casting a long shadow over the place where a pirate prince and a young boy once dreamt of riches and found only the sea. Rest in peace to the 144, and may the story of your final night be told with the honesty and the grace that every human life deserves. Our submersible lights are turned off, the mission is finished, and the Whydah Gally returns to the pitch-black silence of its 300-year-old and cold Atlantic grave once more tonight. Goodbye to the gold, goodbye to the ghost of Black Sam, and goodbye to the memory of John King, as we leave the deep ocean and return to the light.